The day is here. It is May 3rd, 2024, and is the 4th annual California State University Grad Slam. Good morning. My name is Dr. Dina Perrone, and I am the Associate Dean of Graduate Studies at California State University, Long Beach. I want to begin today by acknowledging that California State University, Long Beach, your host for today, is on the sacred site of the Pavanga. California State University acknowledges that we are on the lands of the Tongva, Gabrieleño, and the Hachiman Huaneño nations who have lived and continue to live here. We recognize that the Tongva and Hachiman nations and their spiritual connection as the first stewards and the traditional caretakers of this land. We thank them for their strength, perseverance, and resistance. We respect and value the many ways the Tongva, Hachiman cultural heritage and beliefs continue to have significance to living people and remind us about the sacred and spiritual relationship that has always existed here at what we now call California State University, Long Beach. Now, to commence today's event, our president, Dr. Jane Close Connolly, would like to welcome you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jane Close Connolly, president of Cal State Long Beach. It's a great pleasure to welcome all of you, graduate students representing 22 CSU campuses, distinguished judges and honored guests, to the 4th annual CSU Grad Slam. We're excited to be hosting this year's event, which will showcase some of the most consequential and cutting-edge research in the CSU today, and to have the opportunity to help emerging researchers tell their academic stories. I'd like to begin by congratulating our very talented student competitors on advancing to the statewide Grad Slam after winning their individual events. What impressive accomplishments. On behalf of all of our CSU presidents and campuses, I want to thank you for the countless hours of hard work you poured into your projects and for your dedication to stretching the boundaries of discovery, knowledge, and creativity. I also want to express my sincere gratitude to our partners from the Chancellor's Office, Deans and Associate Deans of Graduate Studies, the CSU alumni family, friends and champions from the government and industry sectors, and our generous donors and event sponsors. For centuries, universities have played a key role in society by preserving evidence-based historical knowledge, by generating new knowledge and creating new things, and perhaps most importantly, by preparing the next generation to do the same. Today, graduate education contributes to our collective good across a broad range of sectors and fields. According to one influential report, increasingly, graduate school is where future professionals obtain the knowledge and skills needed to solve big, complex problems. Grad Slam is an opportunity to recognize and reward the CSU's top graduate researchers, creators, and innovators, which means it is both part of a great academic tradition and part of an engine that will drive our state's and nation's future economic and social prosperity. Students, your achievements have brought distinction to your campuses, inspired your teachers, mentors, and fellow students, and deepened our understanding and appreciation of the world around us. We can't wait to see what you have in store for us. Best of luck today and in all your future endeavors. Wishing everyone an exciting, inspiring, and empowering 2024 CSU Grad Slam.
Thank you, President Connolly. At California State University, Long Beach, we are proud to share that we have the second highest grad student population and the most applied to graduate programs in the CSU. We have over 100 master's degree programs, about 55 credential programs, 22 post-baccalaureate certificates, and 5 doctoral programs. These programs, the academic success of CSULB's grad students, our graduate student engagement, the impactful, applied, and active learning opportunities for our grad students, and the success of our grad student faculty are led by our esteemed provost and Senior Vice President of Academic Affairs, Dr. Karen Sissom-Gunn. Dr. Sissom-Gunn, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Perrone, and hello to all, and welcome to our fourth annual Grad Slam competition, the fourth annual Grad Slam competition hosted by our campus, California State University, Long Beach. We're honored to be in community with everyone virtually as we get ready to begin this system-wide competition and this statewide 3-minute thesis expose. For those of you who are joining us, as Dr. Perrone has noted, I'm Karen Sissom-Gunn, and I'm proud to serve as the Provost and Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs here at Cal State Long Beach, or as we like to call it, the Beach. On behalf of our campus, I wish to thank all of our incredible participants for sharing their graduate research with us, all the family and friends joining us remotely to offer their support. And I also would like to welcome our esteemed representatives from the CSU Board of Trustees, our state legislature, our deans of graduate studies across the system, and so many of our colleagues from across the CSU who are here with us today. Your support of our amazing graduate students is felt, and I'm sure really appreciated by them. As President Connolly has noted, we're both proud that the Beach could serve as your host for this year's competition. And I especially want to thank our Associate Dean of Graduate Studies, Dr. Dina Perrone, and our incredible Academic Technology Services team for their diligence in coordinating this fourth annual Grad Slam. The CSU Grad Slam is a fast-paced competition in which our graduate students present their research, scholarship, and creative activity in 3 minutes or less, and using just one slide. So fasten your seatbelts. We have 22 of the 23 CSU campuses represented today by their top 2 campus winners. Students, just know, we're so happy you're here to participate in this statewide competition. And we wish you all the best during your presentations today. Good luck, and know you've got this. Your pursuit of a graduate education is truly impressive. And I'm pleased to see so many minds eager to share their scholarship, their thesis work, their hard work, in an extremely condensed manner to boot. As grad students, you've embraced the value of higher education. Many of you may be contemplating future doctoral studies. Go do it. As provost, I oversee the academic activity at the Beach, and I'm extremely proud when I see students committing to their studies, finding a rich passion in learning, and in recognizing the value of participating in research activities. Graduate student research is incredibly important because you're building up your CVs, you're gaining confidence in yourselves, you're deepening your craft, your knowledge in your subject areas, and preparing for the coming steps as your career paths begin or may even continue to develop. Learning is a lifelong pursuit. Always cultivate the curiosity and passion that brings new knowledge to this world. We will always need your brilliance. So as I conclude my remarks, I want to give one last shout out to our Grad Slam participants. We know you'll shine today. I hope you have fun, and I wish you a very successful event. And I'll end with a slogan that we use often at the CSULB, at the Beach. It's 2 words, we deeply treasure. Go Beach! Enjoy today, everyone, and thank you.
Thank you, Provost Sissom-Gunn. The CSU-Wide Grad Slam started just 3 years ago, and it is brought to you by the CSU Grad Deans, ADs, and directors from San Jose State, San Diego State, Sonoma State, Bakersfield, San Bernardino, of course, CSULB, and the CSU Chancellor's Office. We're grateful to our friends in the University of California system for sharing the Grad Slam name with us. The Grad Slam format, originated by the University of Queensland in Australia, invites graduate students to present their research or creative activity to a non-specialist audience in no more than 3 minutes. The Grad Slam is a fast-paced and exciting event, as the provost mentioned, in which grad students learn how to create an elevator pitch to wow publishers, journalists, industry execs, investors, colleagues, friends, and family. Beyond being a great professional development opportunity, it is a great way for us to showcase the breadth of the wonderful work of the 52,000 plus grad students across the CSU system. We all know the value of a graduate education. Graduate study is important for advancing knowledge, fostering innovation, preparing future leaders, and addressing the complex challenges facing society. A graduate education enriches individual lives, enhances their professional opportunities, promotes social mobility, and contributes to the collective advancement of humanity. I am proud that the CSU system embraces graduate education as an essential part of its mission. For today's Grad Slam, as the provost noted, we have no more than 2 competitors from each of the following 22 participating CSU campuses. These students will present their research, scholarship, or creative activity. Today's event will consist of 6 simultaneous preliminary rounds that will start in just a few minutes at 10:30. The final round will start at 1, and we have a break from 12 to 1 for a lunch. After the preliminary rounds, the winners will be announced in the lobby. After the final round, the winners will be announced in the award and closing ceremonies. We expect that to start around 2:15. If at any time during the event you have questions, just go to the lobby. The lobby is open all day and will be staffed. So the competing grad students were randomly assigned to these preliminary round rooms in no particular order. Each student will have up to 3 minutes to present their work. After each presentation, there'll be approximately 1 minute of informal Q&A from the room moderator while the judges are completing their scoring. The Q&A, though, has no impact on the scores. The 6 preliminary rounds will happen in separate rooms, and you are welcome to move to any room at any time during the competitions. The graduate students are presenting in the order you see here, which is the order in the event guide. And to move through rooms, you would just return to the lobby. Now, if you have closed the lobby in your browser, for those of you on a computer, you will need to re-enter the lobby via the link that you used to enter the lobby when you started today. If you are on a mobile device, when you exit this room, you should re-enter the lobby automatically. In this lobby, we will announce the top 2 winners from each preliminary round room who will advance to the final round. As you probably noticed this morning, we did have a slide deck playing of the points of pride of the CSU campuses. And so it'll be on that screen where you will see the preliminary round winners. So stay tuned. After the preliminary rounds, you want to know whether or not your Grad Slam competitor is going to compete for the $1,500 first prize. Once winners are announced, we will break for lunch, and you can join us at 1 for the final round competition. The final round, beginning at 1, will consist of the 2 winners from each round for a total of 12 graduate students. After all students have presented in the final round, the judges will calibrate their scores to select first and second place winners. During the calibration, the audience has an important task. You will vote for the People's Choice Award. To vote, we will launch a Zoom poll where you can select your favorite presentation. The student whose presentation ranks highest in the audience poll and who is neither the first nor the second place winner will be awarded the People's Choice Award trophy and a $500 prize. The second place winner will receive a trophy and $1,000, and the first place winner will receive a $1,500 and a trophy, and of course, have state bragging rights. A special thanks goes to the CSU Chancellor's Office for providing the funding for these awards. The winners will be announced during the awards and closing ceremonies. Now, a few words about the rules of the competition. The grad students are allowed to use only one slide to complement their presentation today. The slide cannot have any transitions, animations, or movement. They must present their work in 3 minutes, and the competitors who go over that time allotment are disqualified. When it is a student's turn to present, their slide with a timer will appear for all to see. You could probably see that on the slide here. Let's see if I can get it to play for you. There you go. The timer will appear in many corners or even in the center. The clock will count down. It'll say begin, signaling that the student should start. As time runs down, the timer color will start flashing red. It is just a brief time of the clock. So remember, if you go over your 3-minute allotment, you'll be disqualified. If technical issues arise, the room moderator will pause and the student will be allowed to try again. The room moderator will determine whether it's best to restart immediately or at the end of the last presenter. The technical issues will not impact the scoring. Speaking of scoring, grad students are judged in 2 main categories: comprehension and content, and engagement and communication. Specifically, the judge is looking for clarity, organization, significance, delivery, and engagement. Students can earn up to 7 points in each of these 2 categories for a maximum score of 14. The judges are allowed to use fractional points, like 7.5. The judging criteria list the competitors, and more information are provided in your event guide. The link to the event guide is in the chat. It's also in the chat in the lobby. We know you want to cheer on the competitors, and we have kept the chat open for that purpose. So please keep your chat messages respectful as you applaud and congratulate our competitors. Without further ado, let's get this competition started. Please return to the lobby so you can select the preliminary room of your choice. The competition will begin promptly at 10:30, and enjoy the competition. I will see you at the awards ceremonies. Thank you.
Good afternoon and welcome to the final round of the 4th annual CSU Grad Slam. My name is Dr. Jody Cormack, and I'm the Vice Provost of Academic Programs and Dean of Graduate Studies at California State University, Long Beach. I want to begin this round by acknowledging that California State University, Long Beach, your host for today, is on the sacred site of Pavunga. We are on the land of Tongva Gabrieleño, and the Hashiman Wanyeno nations who have lived and continue to live here. We recognize the Tongva and the Hashiman nations and their spiritual connection as the first stewards and traditional caretakers of this land. We thank them for their strength, perseverance, and resistance. We respect and value the many ways the Tongva Hashiman cultural heritage and beliefs continue to have significance to the living people and remind us about the sacred and spiritual relationship that has always existed here at what we now call California State University, Long Beach. Now, to launch this final round, we have a message to share from California Senator Lena Gonzalez, who is the current California Senate Majority Leader and the representative of the 33rd District where CSULB resides.
Hi, I'm California Senate Majority Leader Lena Gonzalez, proudly representing Senate District 33, which includes my alma mater, Cal State Long Beach. It is my honor to welcome you to the 4th annual CSU Grad Slam. I would like to personally congratulate this year's CSU Grad Slam competitors for making it this far in the statewide competition. I would also like to greet those in attendance who are here to support our remarkable graduate scholars. This statewide competition offers an exciting opportunity for graduate students to demonstrate their research communication skills which have real-world implications. As a state senator, I understand the critical role that comprehensive research plays in crafting policies for a stronger and more equitable community. Efficient communication of research findings is critical to identifying the needs of facilitating the progress of our state. And being a proud alumna of Cal State Long Beach, I know firsthand the value of the CSU education. The research and creative activities of our state's graduate students expand knowledge and innovation, promote diversity, and advance the growth and development of California and beyond. Best of luck to all the students as you showcase your impactful work during today's Grad Slam competition. You are the catalyst for a better California, and we are so lucky to have you leading the way. And go Beach!
I join the Senator in welcoming all of you to today's event. I especially welcome all of our student participants here with us today, as well as their family and friends. We're so glad to have you here. I also want to welcome all of our colleagues and campus representatives from throughout the Cal State system, as well as the friends of California higher education that are here today. It's wonderful that you could join us. Certainly, last but not least, I'm delighted to welcome our judges. First off, we have Dr. Karen Inoue. Dr. Inoue comes to us from the CSU Chancellor's Office, where she is the Associate Dean of Academic Programs, Curriculum, and Assessment. Dr. Inoue, can you turn on your camera and say hello?
Hello. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you for being here today. Our second judge is Dr. Mary Beth Watwood. Dr. Watwood is the Vice Provost for Academic Programming and Graduate Studies at Northern Arizona University, and she is also the 2023-24 President of the Western Association of Graduate Schools. Dr. Watwood, please turn on your camera and say hello.
Thank you so much for having me. I really am looking forward to this. When I came into my current office in what was the Graduate College and is now the Office of Graduate and Professional Studies, one of the wonderful things I inherited was our version of the Grad Slam. And it has had a huge place in my heart ever since. So congratulations to all the finalists. Congratulations to the entire Long Beach team. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Watwood. The CSU was definitely inspired by WAGs in beginning our own Grad Slam tournament. So thank you. Also here today with us today is Dr. Simon Kim. Dr. Kim is currently the Associate Vice President for Research and Economic Development at the Beach. Dr. Kim, can you turn on your camera and say hello?
Hello, everyone. Looking forward to listening to your presentations.
Thank you so much. Judges, in order to get the best experience with viewing competitor presentations, please make sure to have your settings set up for a side-by-side view. In the CSU, we take pride in our university's graduate programs. My colleagues and I across the CSU campuses are working to support graduate education and the research, scholarly, and creative activities of our 52,000 graduate students. Our CSU alumni with graduate degrees have increased earning potential, specialized expertise, and greater control over their career paths. We look forward to seeing what is next for today's Grad Slam competitors who will soon receive their graduate degrees. Just a couple of hours ago, we enjoyed their preliminary round presentations, and now we are excited to move forward with the 2 top scoring students from each room. We'll present the top, actually 13 finalists who achieved their highest scores in this competition. So let's applaud these 13 finalists. Finalists, can you just turn on your camera and wave hello? They earned their spot in the finals after excelling in the preliminary rounds. Reaching this stage was a challenging accomplishment, and we commend all of you for your hard work and your commitment to your field. Congratulations once again. We eagerly anticipate your next presentations. Given we would like you to focus on these amazing Grad Slam competitors, we are requesting that everyone's camera is off and you are muted. Presenters will be instructed as to when their cameras and to turn on their cameras and to turn them off, and also when to mute and unmute. Now we would like to remind you of the rules of this afternoon's session. Each of our participants today has been allowed to use only one slide to complement their presentation. During the competition, participants will be judged based on their ability to successfully engage this non-specialist audience while communicating key details about their research in under 3 minutes. Our esteemed judges will be looking for clarity, organization, language appropriateness, significance, delivery, visuals, and engagement. However, students must follow the strict 3-minute time allotment. Competitors who go over that time allotment will be disqualified. They did it once. I know they can do it again. Not be disqualified, but finish under 3 minutes. Before we begin the competition, we have a few housekeeping notes to share with you. We know you would all like to cheer on your participants, and chat is open for that purpose. Please be respectful to all of our participants. If a participant's Zoom connection fails in the middle of their presentation, we will move on to the next competitor while that participant regains their Zoom connection, and that presenter will then present last. The way we will proceed for each student today is that I'll introduce a student who will then deliver their presentation. Afterwards, while the judges tally their scores, I'll chat with the student and learn a little bit more about them. Please note that this chat will have no influence on the scoring. After the students have presented, the judges will go to the calibrating room to finalize their scores. While that's happening, we'll display a Zoom poll because you have the ability to vote for the People's Choice Award. So don't leave. We want you to count, and we want to count your vote. The winners of the first, second, and People's Choice winners will be announced in our closing ceremonies. Okay, I'm sure our students are ready and you're eager to see them. So let's begin. Ariana Garabedian from Fresno State, would you please turn on your camera and microphone and say hello?
Hello.
Great, we can hear you, we can see you. You ready to go?
As ready as I'll ever be.
All right, perfect, here we go.
Imagine for a moment a puzzle with so many pieces that come together to make a bigger picture. Now imagine that one of those pieces is emotion and temperament and its role in developmental stuttering. In other words, stuttering is much more than just stumbling over a word or two. It actually has a multifaceted nature with genetic predisposition and environmental influences. And amongst all of this, the role of emotion and temperament often gets lost. So let me put this together for you. I want you to think of a time when you had to give a presentation. Where were your emotions? Were you nervous, maybe anxious, even excited? Now think of a child or a person who stutters going into that same presentation, and they have the same emotions that you do, but now they are grappling with the heightened anxiety, knowing that they struggle with their speech. This creates a vicious cycle of anticipation and avoidance of each one of those stuttering moments and situations. Now let's add temperament on top of that. Temperament is an innate disposition that you and I are both born with, and it determines the way that we cope with everyday situations and the way that we interact with the world. Say that this person or child who stutters now has a cautious temperament on top of their emotions. They're going to be prone to avoiding. So they might avoid that presentation altogether. They want to avoid the embarrassment of their speech. This further plays into that vicious cycle of anticipation and avoidance. And they're not just going to avoid that presentation, they're going to avoid social situations, group gatherings, friendships, job interviews, you name it, all because they stutter. And with that, by addressing the emotional and temperamental factors going into developmental stuttering, we further empower those who stutter to manage their speech more effectively. Now, let me shed light on the significance of my thesis research, a meta-analysis synthesizing extensive research on the topic of emotion and temperament to bring it all together for a bigger picture. This meta-analysis serves as a beacon, guiding a way for greater understanding and inclusivity for individuals who stutter in a way that has never been done before. Through comprehensive examination, we transcend the limitations of individual studies, piecing them together one by one for deeper insight and bigger results. In essence, my research is not just an academic exercise. It is a vital step towards greater understanding and inclusivity for individuals who stutter, and pieces together a way for more tailored and empowering interventions for each individual one by one. Thank you.
Thank you, Ariana.
Thank
While
you.
the judges are completing their scores, I'd like to ask you a little bit more about yourself.
Absolutely.
What was your undergraduate degree in, and what made you decide to go to graduate school?
My undergraduate degree was in speech language pathology as well. And I decided to go to graduate school so that I can expand my knowledge and get more clinical hours towards my licenses when I graduate from this program to work as a speech therapist.
That's great. So my background was as a physical therapist. So
Oh,
I understand a
wonderful.
little bit about where you're coming from. Where do you
Yeah.
hope to practice after you graduate?
I hope to practice in a school setting, but I'm really excited. I start in a hospital externship in a few weeks, and I am opening my heart to it, and I'm excited to see that as well. So I want to work in a school, but I'm keeping my options open. I'd love to try a whole bunch of things while I can.
That's a great attitude. I'm sure you'll have a great experience there.
Thank
What
you.
got you interested in stuttering?
Oh my gosh, I'm interested in the field as a whole. And I had a wonderful opportunity with Dr. Zenga Malatkale. She's watching. This is her specialty. And one day I went into her office. They said, hey, you know what? I want to write a thesis and I want to know what you research. And she told me all about it. And she just has a fire about fluency. And it put that fire right into me too, and in so many of my classmates. So that influenced me to do the research, and I've fallen in love with it. I was just telling her yesterday, I want to continue with it as much as I can.
That is awesome. So what do you do when you're not studying or working?
Oh my goodness. I'm really heavily involved in the Armenian community here in Fresno. I'm Armenian myself, and it's where I really find a lot of my identity and most of my friends, just with a shared history and culture.
Are you from Fresno originally, or did you come from somewhere else?
I'm from Fresno.
Ah, homegrown.
Yes.
You planning on staying there?
Yes.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about Fresno. What is it about Fresno that excited you about going there?
We have actually a wonderful program at Fresno State for speech pathology, and it's one of the really attractive things about the university to me. And also in my undergraduate studies, I had the opportunity to minor in Armenian studies. And last summer, I got to study abroad in Armenia as well. So with those two factors in there, I mean, I just scored, and I live down the street from it. So
that is great. Well, congratulations. Thank you for taking the time to
you.
chat with us, Ariana. It appears
Thank you
that the
so
judges
much.
have entered their scores, and we're ready to introduce the next competitor.
Thank you.
Ayushi Dwivedi from CSU East Bay. Would you please turn on your camera and microphone and say hello?
Hello.
Hello, we can see you and we can hear you. Are you ready to go?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Here we go.
Artificial intelligence, a buzzword these days, raising a common question in everybody's mind. Is it good or is it bad? Today, I'm going to talk about my project and tell you all how I am leveraging the power of AI, and hopefully it will add a fresh perspective on this topic. Before providing details about my project, I would like to tell a personal experience that inspired its creation. In year 2018, I met with a road accident, after which I faced difficulties that people with mobility issues often face. My life got back to normal very soon, after 6 to 12 months. But unfortunately, that's not the case with everyone. 1 out of 4 persons in United States have some kind of disability, and 12% of them have mobility issues. A very common problem that they face is when they visit a new location, they find it really difficult to locate accessibility features such as ramps and elevators. I am trying to solve this problem using drones. You wonder how? Once a person reaches to a new location, all they need to do is simply book their desired destination using a mobile phone. The drone will get activated from the nearest base station and guide the person to the destination. And the path will be accessible. It will not have any obstacles such as stairs and potholes. I'm really happy to share with all of you that I have achieved 80% accuracy in object detection model that can detect obstacles such as stairs, potholes, and accessibility features such as ramps, elevators, etc. I've also programmed the drone to autonomously fly from source till destination by avoiding obstacles. Do you know about 63% of the time, the people with mobility issues are hesitant to ask for help and thus they do not feel independent. With this project, I want to create a safe space for everybody so that everyone can feel included and independent. Thank you.
Thank you, Ayushi. While the judges are completing their scores, I'd like to ask you a little bit more about yourself and your work.
Yeah,
So
sure.
tell us what got you interested in this work.
So as I mentioned in my presentation, I do have a personal experience where I faced mobility issues. So that's why the area of basically helping people with disability is something really close to my heart. And when I started my graduate degree, I was working on drones with my professor. So that's how I clubbed both these topics and came up with this idea.
That's just wonderful. I think someone wrote this in the chat. It's very impactful research, and I agree.
Thank you so much.
What made you choose East Bay?
So I'm an international student. I came to the States in 2022, and being a person with computer science background, Silicon Valley was something that was always interesting to me, and I really wanted to explore what's there, how the tech industry is making revolution and bringing so good ideas to the world. So that's why I chose East Bay and pursued masters here.
That's great. So what do you think your next steps are?
So I'm planning to join the tech industry. So that's the next goal. I'm preparing for the job after my graduation. I would definitely like to give my contributions to this tech revolution and make people's life easier.
That's wonderful. What do you like to do during your off time?
So when I'm not studying, I like to paint and listen to music. That's something that really helps me calm down. So that's what I do when I have time.
What kind of music?
So every kind of music. So I'm from India, so we have a lot of Bollywood music in India. So that's something that I really enjoy.
That's great. So did you come here from India?
Yes. Yes.
How are you liking the United States and California?
Oh, I'm loving it, especially the weather. It's just amazing in the Bay Area. It's a great combination of beaches and mountains. So I just love it here.
That's great. Well, we are glad to have you. Thank you so much for your presentation. It appears the judges have entered their scores and we're ready to introduce the next competitor.
Thank you.
Stephanie Duarte Amezcua from Chico State. Would you please turn on your camera and microphone and say hello?
Hello.
Hello, Stephanie. We can see you and we can hear you. Are you ready to go?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right, perfect. You're on.
Okay. I want everyone to imagine a condition that affects millions of children around the world, making their spines curve abnormally. The name of this condition is called idiopathic scoliosis, and it has puzzled scientists for centuries. And it is mainly because idiopathic scoliosis cause is unknown. But what if I told you right now that fish could hold a key to our understanding of this complex and mysterious disorder? Idiopathic scoliosis was first described about 3,000 years ago by Hippocrates, and it remains a major health concern to this day. Numerous studies have shown that children with idiopathic scoliosis often show some growth abnormalities. But what do I mean by growth abnormalities? Well, children with idiopathic scoliosis might show something called anterior spinal overgrowth, in which the front part of their spine might grow longer compared to the back part of their spine. They can also show some other overall growth abnormalities, in which their bones might be growing at different rates, leading to differences in the lengths of their arms, legs, and trunk. However, most of the information that we have is clinical, And in these clinical studies, the methodologies are not always reliable. But that's where my project comes into play. My project focuses on the question, is bone growth abnormal in idiopathic scoliosis? And I will be using Medaka fish for my study. My research design will divide into two parts. The first part focusing on localized bone growth, the second part focusing on overall growth. For my first study, in my focus localized bone growth, I will be doing an individual vertebral body study. Thankfully, the fish that I'm using has fluorescence in their bone cells, which allows me to look at individual vertebra better. So I will be looking at individual vertebra in fish with scoliosis and fish without scoliosis, and then comparing their results. The second study will be a fin regeneration study. Medaka fish have the amazing ability of regenerating their fins, which means that if I cut a fin, it'll grow right back. So I will be cutting 70% of the fins of fish with scoliosis and fish without scoliosis, and then comparing their results. For my second focus, I will be doing an allometric study, also known as a body length study. And I will be measuring A, trunk length, B, tail length, and C, spine length in fish with scoliosis and fish without scoliosis. Right now, when we think of idiopathic scoliosis, we think it's affecting the bone, but we don't know that for sure. My project will help us identify if idiopathic scoliosis is affecting the bone directly by the individual vertebral body study and fin regeneration study, or if it's more of a metabolic process. By doing this, my project will fill in a gap in our understanding of idiopathic scoliosis. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Well, the judges are completing their scores. We're gonna have a little chat. So you mentioned, well, what do you think if I told you that fish are the answers to scoliosis, and it's like, what? Like mind blown. So tell us how you got into this research and how these connections were made.
Yeah, of course. I got into this research in a research symposium during my freshman year of my undergrad. I always wanted to become a pediatrician, and when I saw this research and I understood that it affects the pediatric population, it was just like a connection that told me that I needed to do that. And then I met my advisor, my research advisor, and I fell in love with the way she explained, the way she was motivated, and she explained the science and how passionate she was about this, which made me passionate about this topic.
That's wonderful. Do you still plan to go on and be a pediatrician?
Yes, I do.
Excellent. And applying to medical schools?
Yes, but I also want to get an MD PhD.
Good for you. I love it. Well, congratulations, Stephanie. That was a great presentation. It appears the judges have entered their scores and we're ready to move on to the next competitor.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Zach Merson from CSU Long Beach. Can you turn on your camera and say hello?
Hi.
Hi, there you are. I can see you and I can hear you. Are you ready to go?
Yep, ready to go.
All right, you're on.
Southern California is a nursery habitat for great white sharks, meaning that we have predominantly juvenile sharks that are here for our warmer waters, plentiful food, and protection from larger predators. While in Southern California, these juvenile sharks form aggregations or groups of up to 40 sharks in a 5-kilometer stretch of beach. These aggregations remain at the same site for months to years on end, so we anticipate that they have some sort of top-down effect on the broader prey community. We know pretty well what juvenile white sharks are eating from prior research. For example, benthic elasmobranchs, which include things like leopard sharks, guitar fish, but most importantly, stingrays, are the greatest contributor to the juvenile white shark diet. What we don't know is what kind of effect these aggregations are having on such species. To answer this, we turn to a novel technology called eDNA metabarcoding. eDNA, or environmental DNA, is just any loose genomic material in the environment, from shed skin, fecal matter, decomposing tissue. And the metabarcoding part means that we can capture this DNA, sequence it, and match it to the species that it came from. So I went and took seawater samples from 3 juvenile white shark aggregation sites and 2 former aggregation sites as our controls, filtered out all that DNA, sequenced it, and then matched those sequences to the species it came from. And we also know that the number of sequences roughly correlates with that species' local abundance. What we found was a pretty strong relationship between each prey group's contribution to the juvenile white shark diet and their respective decrease at aggregation sites compared to our control sites. For example, the benthic elasmobranchs, which again are primarily stingrays, are about a quarter of the juvenile white shark diet, and they decreased by 75% at juvenile white shark aggregation sites, which indicates that these sharks are eating these stingrays or scaring them off. Prey groups that weren't targeted by white sharks, such as forage fish and large pelagic fish, think of things like sardines and mackerels, actually benefited from these aggregations, potentially due to decreased competition or predation from some of these other prey groups that are targeted. What this shows is that these sharks really are having a strong top-down effect on the broader prey community, and that it really is especially dangerous being small and flat like a pancake, such as our stingrays. We provided this data to lifeguards and beach safety officials because these aggregations occur at some of the most heavily used beaches in Southern California. So this provides insight into why the sharks are aggregating and what they're doing while they're there. Hopefully, this research helps to further educate lifeguards and beach safety officials and helps us better coexist with these incredible animals at our Southern California beaches. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. While the judges are completing their scores, we're going to find out a little bit more about you. So tell us what drew you to the Shark Lab at Long Beach.
Well, for those of you who have not heard of it yet, the Shark Lab at Cal State Long Beach is one of the most renowned elasmobranch or shark research labs in the entire country. Dr. Chris Lowe, who's the lab's advisor, is known for his cutting edge and really impactful research regarding sharks in the Pacific. So I'd always been interested in marine biology, sharks especially, and when I was starting to look for graduate programs, I had known about Chris Lowe from his TV interviews. He's been on Discovery Channel and Nat Geo and all over the place, and so I wanted to be a part of that research.
That's wonderful. What are your plans next once you finish?
I'm starting a position this summer in the same lab with Dr. Lowe. As a research technician to just continue this work for a year. And then hopefully after that, I'll be starting a PhD.
Well, you will have a great preparation going into your PhD. That's wonderful. So where did you come from originally?
I grew up in Massachusetts, which is now known as one of the white shark capitals of the world. Okay. I saw my first white shark when I was 7 or 8, and that just kind of started everything.
Coast to coast white sharks.
Exactly.
That's great. Well, it appears that the judges are ready and they've entered their scores. So we're going to go ahead and introduce the next competitor. Alyssa Anzalone from CSU Monterey Bay. Could you please turn on your camera and microphone and say hello?
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being here and putting this on.
That's great. We can see you and we can hear you. Are you ready to go?
I am ready. Let's do it.
All right, perfect. Let's do it. Here you go.
Is the timer oh. Hi, everyone. My name is Alyssa, and I will be discussing my project that analyzed the risk of microplastics in the Pajaro and San Lorenzo rivers in Santa Cruz County. Now, microplastics are teeny tiny pieces of plastic between 1 micrometer and 5 millimeters that break down from everyday products like clothes, such as the microfiber you can see in the top left corner of my screen. Now, both people and wildlife are exposed to microplastics, which can cause illness and death in both. With this, it is important to assess the risks microplastics pose to species that are at risk of extinction in the Pajaro and San Lorenzo rivers. I assess risks by using NOAA microplastic abundance data. From this data set, I identified that there was 1 microplastic per liter in both rivers. And using this microplastic abundance data, I was able to assign a risk value, or tier, to each river following Mahinto et al.'s work. There are 5 tiers in total. Tier 5 represents the highest microplastic abundance and risk to wildlife, while Tier 1 represents the lowest. Both the Pajaro and the San Lorenzo rivers were in Tier 2, meaning that microplastic abundance and risk is relatively low in both rivers. Now, while risk is low in these rivers compared to many others, it is still important to increase monitoring frequency to manage the effects of microplastics in the long term. Now, I'm sure this does bring up the question of why should we care even though risk is low? And to examine this, I created two maps showing observations of federally protected species that are at risk of extinction in both rivers. I assessed what species would specifically be impacted by microplastics by using iNaturalist wildlife observations and critical habitats identified by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and NOAA. This includes things like the monarch butterfly that consumes plants that can uptake plastics from the river, rainbow and steelhead trout habitat that they need to reproduce, killer whale habitat that they need to survive, and of course, CSUMB's iconic southern sea otter. And even though the Pajaro rivers in San Lorenzo River is in the same tier for risk, there are far more observations of these sensitive species in the San Lorenzo. With this, I recommend that management agencies take the actions necessary to protect wildlife from microplastics, especially in the San Lorenzo. Thank you so much for your time, and I welcome any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. So tell us a little bit more about yourself. Where do you come from with your undergraduate degree, and how did you decide to go to Monterey Bay?
Yeah, so originally my dad was in Orange County and my mom was on Oahu. So I've been exposed to a lot of these ecosystems for my entire life. And when I turned 18 and it was time to go to college, I ended up enrolling at UC Santa Cruz, and I got a double degree in biology and environmental studies and wrote a thesis under Dr. Karen Hull. I chose Monterey because I think that the unique natural resources on campus were something that I was going to be able to study a lot and contribute to the research that's out there.
That's great. So what comes next after you get your degree?
Well, what's next for me is I'm applying to PhD programs. I'm looking to do one within the next few years, and hopefully when I'm done with that, I can get a position in NOAA's Marine Debris Program that studies microplastics in places like the Great Pacific Garbage Patch.
That's great. And then hopefully after that, you'll come back and be faculty for the CSU again.
Hey, I would love that. You know, you have my email.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. It appears the judges have entered their scores, and we're ready to introduce the next competitor. Purvi Dada from CSU Marcos. Could you please turn on your microphone and say hello, and your camera too?
Hello, everyone. My name is Purvi, and I'm going to talk to you today about my thesis titled Recorded Lectures with Edited Captions Make STEM Courses More Accessible for Students with Disabilities. So in the top left here, we can see the problem, the equity gap that underscores this research. Students with disabilities show a similar initial proportional enrollment in STEM majors compared to students without disabilities. However, as their academic careers go on, we see two major losses. Students with disabilities either switch out of their STEM majors or they just don't graduate, which altogether contributes to a low proportion of students with disabilities actually persisting to graduate with their STEM majors. To remediate this pressing equity gap, we sought to investigate a potential tool, caption recorded lectures. As you could guess from the title of my thesis, we look at the caption component of that and pay particular attention to the fact that captions actually come in two types. Captions can be edited, which are modified by humans before uploading, or they can be automatically generated by speech recognition software, like you might see on YouTube or Zoom. As you've also probably seen, they can be quite error-prone. Another big gap in the literature centers on the fact that students with disabilities are treated like we're a monolith, but we're not a monolith. We have different disability subtypes. Those can affect our access needs, our experiences, and our preferences. So we wondered what disability-specific obstacles are affected by the inclusion and type of closed captions on recorded lectures and STEM courses. To answer this question, we conducted 25 semi-structured interviews with students with disabilities about their captioning preferences, and then analyzed that data using emergent theme analysis and MaxQDA software. Our findings down below show that we overwhelmingly found students reported the benefits of captions and said, yes, there are a lot of disability-specific benefits. For example, students with ADHD or students who are distractible said that captions help them focus and fill in gaps in knowledge. Students with auditory or cognitive processing disabilities said that captions help them process information more efficiently. However, the presence of errors in automatic captions largely undermined a lot of these benefits and often created disability-specific obstacles. For example, students with mental health disabilities said the errors made them anxious. Errors in captions were also distracting for students who were already distractible. Especially when errors occurred in jargon, which is so integral to scientific disciplines, students had to compensate for this gap by relying on external resources like peers, YouTube videos, or in the case of one deaf student, even editing their captions themselves. However, students said, hey, anything is better than nothing. One of our students, Devin, who has autism and ADHD, summarizes this sentiment well when they say, if STEM courses just don't include captioning, then that's aid I could have received, but I'm not receiving. So I'd rather make that decision myself. That's why we recommend edited captions on recorded lectures and auto at best.
Thank you so much, Purvi. So I think every one of the grad deans in my position is listening to your presentation going, this is good information. You probably would be part of one of our student success teams on one of our campuses. So tell us how you got interested in this research.
So I'm a student with disabilities. I was almost one of those statistics, and I have a lot of friends who were. I think it's really important that students with disabilities have someone on their side that's both a researcher and an advocate. And I'm very passionate about investigating sort of like evidence-based practices that can kind of widespread promote accessibility for students with disabilities, especially in STEM classrooms. Yeah.
So I know that we found when we went remote for COVID that it was actually quite a benefit to many of our disabled students.
Yes.
They kind of discovered some of the benefits. So was that a part of your research, and what would your recommendations be for us now that we're back mainly to face-to-face?
Thank you so much for asking that question. First of all, yes, that's exactly what motivated this research.
Yeah.
So I ran out of time there a little bit, but what I was going to say is our recommendation is that all recorded lectures in STEM courses have edited captions on them. And at worst is what I meant to say. Auto captions are better than nothing, especially if there's not institutional policy already in place to support faculty in implementing these accommodations. One of the biggest things that my publication, hopefully, is going to say is that the onus is not on faculty to do a bunch of extra work when they're already burned out and edit their captions themselves for hours at a time. If you have the bandwidth, please do. But my study serves to inform institutional policy so that we can sort of standardize these resources for all students in a way that's equitable to faculty too.
That's great. What are next steps for you?
Grad school, a PhD.
Okay. All right.
Well, more grad school, I should say.
Hoping to come back and be a faculty member?
Yes.
That's great. That's wonderful. So what do you like to do when you're not doing this work?
Man, well, the reason why I thought is I like Dungeons and Dragons. I like D&D. And I also yes, and I also learn ASL in my free time. So, you know, thank you to our awesome interpreters.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's great. Tell us a little bit about where you were from originally. You are at what university are you at?
CSU San Marcos.
San Marcos. Are you from there originally?
I'm from San Diego. Yeah, basically the same thing.
so okay. All right. Well, thank you for talking with us, Purvi.
Yeah.
The judges have entered their scores, and we're ready to introduce the next competitor. Timothy Tan from San Jose State. Could you please turn on your camera and microphone and say hello?
Hello.
Hi. All right. Are you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. Perfect. Here we go.
I'll let you in on a secret about engineers. Some of us just want to get paid to play with Legos. Finally, thanks to metal 3D printing, we can kind of do this. The magic of Legos is that you use small bricks to make anything, from race cars to rocket ships, building anything we want, brick by brick. Likewise, with metal 3D printing, we take metal powder composed of fine spherical particles, each particle about the thickness of a human hair, and use a laser to melt these particles together making anything we want, particle by particle. In the Kalesh Material Science group, we use metal 3D printing to build technologies that incorporate small and intricate designs to produce lightweight yet strong structures. But one major challenge we face is that as the size of our designs decrease, factors like strength and stiffness are compromised. This is a problem because we could find our designs destroyed in situations we thought they would be fine in, all because we believed large and small designs perform the same. This is known as a problem of size effects. In this research, my aim was to 1, document size effects, and 2, understand its origins. To begin, I 3D printed samples of various thicknesses. To understand how small these samples are, remember, each particle is about the thickness of a hair. Next, I analyzed size effects in 3 steps. First, I performed X-ray tomography. Like when a doctor uses X-rays to peek inside your body and find flaws, I used X-rays to peek inside my samples and find flaws. Second, I performed tensile tests. Here, I place my samples in a machine that grabs each end of the sample and pulls it apart until it snaps in half. This test helps me understand how performance changes as size decreases. Finally, I performed microscopy. Like the microscopes used in biology labs to see very small cells, I used a much more powerful microscope to look at my broken samples, which helped me understand why performance changes as size decreases. With these 3 techniques, I detailed how and why size effects occur in metal 3D printing. So, now what? By understanding size effects, we can incorporate various sizes to produce complex patterns to then build complex structures. These structures can be used by engineers, researchers, and designers to produce lightweight yet strong parts for machines like cars, which will save fuel and combat climate change, as just one example. So we can thank Legos for the idea of designing our technology, brick by brick, particle by particle. Thank you.
Thank you, Timothy. Thanks for sharing the secret of the engineer.
You're welcome.
So what got you interested in this research?
Originally, before starting grad school, I took up 3D printing as a hobby. I guess it was pretty big when COVID started. My friend got me into it. And then entering grad school, I was looking for things to research. And one of the things was metal 3D printing. So I thought it would be cool to have some experience at 3D printing as a hobby, and then 3D printing in academia, and then seeing how things related and how things differed.
That's interesting. You know, I'm familiar with 3D printing, but I wasn't familiar with metal 3D printing. So what are the differences and how it would be used in real life, say?
In hobby 3D printing, you don't really, so you can make anything you want pretty much, but you don't want to use it for actual stuff because the final parts are actually pretty weak and unreliable. But for metal 3D printing, where they're trying to design products for like rocket ships and human implants, so these are very critical applications. So they really need to get the science right, just because the difference in application is very different.
I liked your discussion about a problem of size. Do you think we'll get to the point where we can print a building one day?
I think we've getting close to there, actually. Yeah, I see houses being 3D printed. I think that's one popular area, and I can only see it getting bigger.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much, Timothy. Judges have completed their scores, and we're now going to introduce the next competitor. Jair Torres from Stanislaus State. Could you please turn on your camera and microphone and say hello?
Yeah, I'm right here. Hello, everyone.
Hello, good to see you. Are you ready to go?
Yes, I am.
Okay, perfect. The floor is yours.
In the year 2020, a mysterious illness crept along the western coast of the United States. People presented to the hospital with infections that were later identified as salmonella. At first, The origin of this epidemic was a mystery. However, an investigation by the US government identified the culprits behind this epidemic, and those responsible are pictured right here. From left to right, we can appreciate the photos of the house finch, the lesser goldfinch, the American goldfinch, and the pine siskin. But how could such cute little guys create such a big mess for human populations? Well, the answer lies in bird feeders. Every single person who had become ill during this epidemic had indirectly come into contact with these birds while cleaning their garden bird feeders. In addition to demonstrating the important impact that birds have on human health, this epidemic also demonstrated that not all birds are equally likely to catch and spread salmonella. For example, the pine siskin, which is the little troublemaker on the far right, is much more likely to infect people. This came as a shock to scientists because the 4 birds pictured up here are close relatives of each other. We can appreciate how closely they are related on the bottom left evolutionary tree. Not only that, these birds interact very frequently with each other in nature, so they have plenty of opportunities to infect each other. So why does this not happen? Why do some birds become ill and spread salmonella, while their close family members seem to be resistant? This is the question that my thesis aims to answer. I am using an approach known as comparative genomics, which involves analyzing the DNA of each of these birds, identifying the pieces of DNA responsible for fighting off infection, and then comparing them to see if there are any differences that may explain why some birds become ill and others do not. I have already had success with my project as I have been able to completely sequence the DNA of the American goldfinch, which has never before been done. Not only that, I have been able to identify a key immune piece of DNA known as the TLR4, which is represented as the blue arrows on the bottom right. I have also found evidence that this region of DNA has been changing throughout evolutionary history. As we can see in the house finch, this gene has been reversed. These findings can help other scientists identify birds that may pose a risk to human populations. But with science, the work is never done. So I am currently working on finding the other genes responsible for bird health, and I can't wait to share these results with you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jair. I liked your introduction. It reminded me of an episode of House where they have to go in and find where the pathogen is and what's making people sick, right? So how did you get interested? I know that you're interested in birds, but in looking at how they respond to illness.
Yes, so I have been interested in genetics for a long time. And as undergraduate, I was part of a research group that applied computer science to biological questions. And so I was really attracted to Stanislaus State because they have professors that study this field. And instead of studying it in humans like I did as an undergraduate, we study it in birds.
So what is the connection between what you're doing between birds and humans?
Yes, so the gene that I'm looking at, the TLR, is also found in humans. And so there are many genes that are shared between like animals, and they've been conserved throughout evolutionary history. And so by studying birds, we can better understand human TLRs.
That's interesting. And you said you're the first one to recognize that in birds. Is that right? Or in these particular birds?
So a professor from Fresno State, Dr. Slade, and Dr. Van Laar from Stanislaus State, they identified that these birds have, it's called differential susceptibility. So some become ill and some don't. But this is the first time we've been able to completely determine the order of letters in the DNA of the American goldfinch. A couple of years ago, that was a very hard task, but as biology advances, it has become cheaper and easier.
And so that sequence has a difference in terms of who gets sick and who doesn't?
That's what we believe. And so we have found evidence that these immune genes are indeed changing in response to something, most likely.
That's wonderful research. Thank you so much for sharing it with us today. All right, it appears the judges have entered their scores and we're ready to introduce our next competitor. Ryutaro Ichichara from CSU Fullerton. Can you please turn on your camera and microphone and say hello?
Hello?
Hello, I hear you.
Yes, can
Now
you
I
see?
see you. All right, so we're good to go. Are you ready?
I can't see myself in the screen. Let's.
I can see you. Omar, Dina, can you help?
Hello, hello. I think it.
I could see and hear him.
I can as well.
So maybe I just can't see myself. It's okay.
That's probably good. Then you won't get freaked out, right? So
Yeah.
can you see the slide that has your timer on it?
Yes.
Okay.
I can see my screen. The
Okay.
introduction. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can
All
see
right.
that.
I think we're good to go.
Yep.
The floor is yours.
How is it like not to be able to freely control your arms and legs? I often ask my brother this question with cerebral palsy. His response was always thought-provoking. Well, I don't know. How is it like to be able to control them? Cerebral palsy, or CP, is the most common motor disability that disrupts movement and balance due to abnormal brain development. Its conditions vary significantly. Some people might only experience minor difficulties in walking, while the others may need help with sitting or standing. CP is a lifelong condition existing at birth and neither progresses nor diminishes over time. So, people with CP have a distinctive view towards normal body and movement. Their unique perspective challenges our traditional views of mobility and ability, enriching our understanding of human movement and physical activity. So, in my thesis, I investigated how people with CP perceive their bodies within physical activity settings and what physical activity means to them. Often feel like their bodies are somewhat foreign or alienated due to uncontrollable pain, uncontrollable limbs, and persistent pain from chronic muscle pain. Imagine living with the sensation of severe muscle cramps that you can't alleviate. However, this sense of alienation is paradoxically normal for them, as they have never experienced their bodies differently. One participant expressed, "I always tell people that I was born completely normal because this is all I've ever known." Such inherent characteristics of CP often lead to unique, optimal movement patterns for them. For instance, my brother has adopted distinctive galloping crawl, which looks different from traditional crawling. Participants express striving for correct movement can lead to even greater tension, pain, and awkwardness. These insights not only significantly enhance our understanding of CP, but also revolutionize our approach to physical activity. Their experiences suggest physical activity should not be just a practice to correct a movement, but rather is an opportunity for us to communicate with our body to find our own style of movement. By embracing the aspect of physical activity as bodily exploration, we can truly respect and appreciate all kinds of movements. At the next stage, I would like to practically apply this perspective to find the optimal movement and physical activity for people with CP, including my brother. True inclusion is to recognize diverse physical abilities as equally valuable. Thank you.
Thank you. So what was your bachelor's degree in, and what made you choose, beyond your experiences with your family, to go into this type of research?
My degree is in kinesiology, but my emphasis is on sports philosophy. So my research is philosophically looking into the physical abilities and the kinesiological ideas. So I was always interested in how my brother feels like differently from my perspective, because he cannot move well, he cannot use his arms and legs well. So I was always interested in how our perception differs based on our current ability. So, and I wanted to use the method called phenomenology, which look into the lived experience of people, lived experience of the participants. A lot of kinesiology research are more like practical and how the numbers matters and how that science. So I wanted to look into more internal experience of people with CP.
More of a qualitative background.
Yes.
That's great. So what are your next steps for you?
I am looking into the PhD programs, so I would like to advance my study in the PhD programs, and I want to become a college professor in the future.
Good job. So it seems like, you know, you were doing some comparison between someone with CP and someone without CP, and looking at sports moving forward. Would you try and make similar comparisons between people who are athletic and non-athletic?
Yes, that would be interesting research as well. But I think even just within the population in the CP, there's so many variations. CP has a lot of different kinds and a lot of different degrees. So I think first it's interesting to look into their variations and also expand that variations to a lot more different populations. So I feel like there's millions of ways to go, but the baseline is we see each movement and physical abilities as equally valid and valuable. By doing this, we can respect entire populations rather than seeing someone as disabled or able, athletic, non-athletic. It's just a different degrees of abilities.
That's a great equity message. Thank you so much, Ryotaro.
Thank you.
It appears the judges have entered their scores and we're ready to introduce the next competitor. Eamon Mason Tabriz Izeda, could you please turn on your camera and microphone?
Yes, hello.
Hi, welcome. Are you ready to go?
Yes, I am all ready.
All right.
All right, so before jumping into everything, I'm going to be referring to psychedelic assisted therapy as PAT. So what is PAT? PAT is psychotherapy paired with psychedelic substances such as ketamine, psilocybin, LSD, and MDMA in order to treat a number of mental health disorders. More recently, there has been a resurgence of interest on the topic of PAT because PAT is showing effective in the treatment of many treatment-resistant disorders. One thing I would like to point out is that the FDA has classified MDMA and psilocybin as breakthrough therapies in the treatment of treatment-resistant depression. So more or less, there's a rising amount of literature highlighting the effectiveness of PAT. However, there seems to be a slow adoption of PAT in the mental health field. And I believe this is because of people's preconceived notions and or fears related to psychedelics. So that brings me to my study. And my objective was to interview mental health therapists who are in favor of PAT in order to see if proponents of PAT had a turning point. And if so, what was this turning point? The reasoning for my objective is that I hypothesize that every person comes from the default of fearing psychedelics. Every person here has been influenced by public sentiment and or legislation. We've all heard of the story of a friend going crazy, or knowing that psychedelics are a Schedule I drug, implying that it is more dangerous than meth and heroin. And the other reasoning is I hypothesize that learning about PAT clears up misunderstandings and or preconceived notions related to PAT. So from the interviews, there were two main themes that emerged. The first one being a turning point. And this turning point was exposure to the effectiveness of PAT. So this exposure could have been articles, documentaries, or hearing stories from friends, family, and or clients. And the second theme was that every clinician I interviewed talked about how they had clients that did not benefit from current treatment methods, as in pharmacology and talk therapy was not effective for some, but PAT is showing effectiveness where current treatment methods are failing. So from these two themes, there is an underlying implication, and this is ethicality. So if there is an effective treatment method that exists, but remains relatively unexplored due to preconceived notions, then we are failing in our ethical responsibility in providing effective care. The closing thought that I have for everyone is that hopefully this study can be a turning point for others. Thank you so much for your time, and that is my presentation.
Thank you so much, Eamon. So tell us what got you interested in this work and how you plan to move forward after you finish.
Yeah, so I've always just been fascinated within the field of therapy, I guess, just wanting to be a therapist and helping people kind of stop the pain and suffering that may arise throughout life. And when I kind of look at a lot of the current treatment methods, it doesn't seem like they are as effective as we would like them to be. So that kind of got me like brainstorming, looking at different things. And that's kind of what led me to psychedelic assisted therapy, because this is kind of showing effectiveness in the treatment of many treatment resistant disorders. And this was even back in the 60s and 70s. There were like thousands of papers published highlighting this stuff. So yeah, just kind of want to help people out. And this seems to be like a promising treatment practice. So just kind of diving into it. And I guess plans moving forward is hopefully finding an area to kind of be involved in research or an application of this. It is a little sketchy or like not really too well defined at the moment. So I'm not really sure, but if not, I'm just going to be doing therapy.
And that was my question. Are you more interested in using this in a therapeutic way or to doing further research?
More of in a therapeutic sense. So like the research definitely is important. And I think that's definitely going to be a big piece to kind of introduce this to a broader population. But my interest really lies in helping people like on the forefront. So I would really love to like have experience doing this in a clinical setting.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Eamon. The judges have entered their scores, so we're ready to introduce the next competitor. Niki Kangas from Sacramento State. Would you please turn on your camera and microphone and say hello?
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
I can hear you and I can see you. Are you ready to go?
I'm ready. I'm excited.
All right, you're on.
All right. Well, I'm Niki Kangas from Sac State's College of Education Gender Equity Program, the best program ever. Shout out to Dr. Crancy. And my thesis examines why women, trans, and non-binary people are participating at lower rates than cisgender men in outdoor recreation, despite the healthy identity development benefits of time in nature. I also draw correlations between participation in outdoor activities and climate change activism to highlight another positive impact of outdoor recreation that so many folks are missing out on. And it's critically important that we close this gap in outdoor rec participation because we're facing impending climate-related disasters and need to ramp up societal engagement around the environment. The findings of my study showed barriers to participation in outdoor rec at the intersections of race, gender, and income. The gendered barriers leading to lower participation in outdoor adventure are worse at the intersection of Black, Indigenous, and people of color, or BIPOC. BIPOC folks often have aversions to outdoor recreation stemming from a fraught history of their imposed relationship to the land, their historic denial of land ownership, and the use of colonizer language when environmental stewardship or nature experiences are being promoted, like, let's conquer that mountain, let's crush it, let's kill it. So my lit review explores the history of outdoor rec in relationship to gender and race, and highlights messaging and representation in outdoor recreation media that continue to influence lower participation rates among these communities of interest. Using a mixed methods approach, I surveyed adults who are women, trans, or non-binary and self-identify as outdoor rec enthusiasts to gather sentiments about their experiences in nature. I did not require BIPOC identification, but I did compare the participant demographics to the data found in the 2023 Outdoor Foundation Annual Report. And of the 44 participants recruited through snowball sampling in my study, only 7 respondents identified as BIPOC. The results of my study unpack why these groups are less incentivized to experience nature, so we can help get these folks outside where they can shine even brighter. It's very important. And the findings led to developing recommendations to outdoor educators to expand access and participation rates in wilderness adventure, including inclusive messaging representation, creating gender and race-based affinity programs, as well as grant funding programs so that we can make them free or low cost to eliminate barriers. Thank you. Stingers up.
Thank you so much, Niki. So what was your interest in this study? Are you a great outdoors person?
Yeah, I sure am. It's something that's really been restorative, especially through this thesis writing journey, but have always loved the great outdoors. I think that the benefits include leadership, skill development, body image. There's so many things that we get from being in these experiences that so many folks are missing out on. So I'm very passionate about that. I have 4 kiddos that, I've always brought on these adventures because I think you're kind of glued to social media and things like that these days. And this is a way that we can kind of break apart from that, diversion, I guess, and reconnect with nature and what's really important and redefine ourselves in the process.
That's wonderful. I mean, you did a really nice job identifying benefits and barriers, and hopefully that's going to lead to the next step of being able to overcome some of those barriers. So congratulations on your research.
Thank you.
All right, the judges have completed their scores. So we are now going to introduce our next competitor. Hale Garcia-Dean from Sonoma State. Would you please turn on your camera and microphone and say hello?
Hello.
Hi, Hale. We can see you and hear you. Are you ready to go?
Yes, I am.
Perfect. Here we go.
Climate change is set to have drastic effects on weather patterns in the coming decades, which will no doubt affect countless human lives. However, there are countless groups of animals around the world that are experiencing these drastic changes right now. I'm, of course, talking about the canaries in the coal mine. These are animals who are highly sensitive to changes in their environment, and changes in their populations can often hint at greater changes to come as they play important roles on the landscape as predator and prey. Species such as the California red-legged frog, a federally protected species which only occupies 30% of their former range today, mostly due to historic overexploitation and the introduction of exotic species. Despite laying hundreds to thousands of eggs in a single breeding event, the vast majority of these tadpoles don't make it to froghood, and even fewer make it to adulthood. And for those that do survive, they face immense threats, both familiar and unknown. It's thought that to avoid overpopulation at the pond environment, frogs will leave the pond and journey across an unfamiliar landscape into an unknown world. Outside the pond, they face new predators, and even worse, the risk of drying out. Amphibians are heavily tied to water in the landscape through rainfall, humidity, and bodies of water like ponds and wetlands. And frogs that are smaller tend to dry out quicker than larger ones, aka juveniles versus adults. And despite never having left the pond before, these naive juveniles venture from the only home they've ever known and enter the dry terrestrial world, which means the timing and the direction that they choose to travel in could mean the difference between surviving to adulthood to pass on their genes and dying on their way. And we know so little about their movement patterns. So we used radio telemetry, an invaluable wildlife tracking technique, to monitor their movement patterns, and we found that they orient themselves heavily relative to landscape features. When given the choice between moving in the direction of open grassland and closed canopy, frogs overwhelmingly chose to move in the direction of closed canopy. And frogs that moved in those directions lived longer and moved farther distances than those that didn't, which suggests that this may be a key landscape feature for protecting this vulnerable species at this extremely vulnerable life stage. And the directions they choose to travel in had secondary aquatic sites such as creeks, ponds, and marshes and wetlands where adult frogs live during the non-breeding season. And so, conserving and monitoring these species, their populations, and their associated habitats can benefit more than just frogs. Wetlands are efficient and powerful carbon sequestration sites, amazing hotspots of biodiversity, and some of the most productive ecosystems on the planet Earth. And they can help support more than just frogs because they provide countless ecosystem services for humans, just like you and I as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Hale. I think that's the biggest frog I've ever seen. That's amazing.
It's not to scale, but they are the largest frog on the Western United States that's native to this region. So they are potentially the biggest frog you've ever seen.
That's great. Well, your research makes me want to go out and plant a bunch of trees. So what do you think the next steps are in your research?
That's a great question. I'd love to publish my thesis so that I can get this knowledge out to the public and we can help close a knowledge gap, because to our understanding, to our knowledge, there are no publications which examine this species during this really vulnerable life stage and what their movement patterns look like. And so we hope to publish this information to better inform management and policymakers to help support this federally threatened species.
That's great. What made you choose Sonoma State to do your research?
I'm actually a Sonoma local, so I was born and raised in Sonoma County. I am an alumnus of the Santa Rosa Junior College, and I also received my Bachelor's of Science in Biology from Sonoma State as well. And so living in this community is really important to me. Like another presenter earlier mentioned, the areas where they grew up and the ecosystems that surround them as they grow up, they imprint upon you. And there are grasslands everywhere in California, but I'm a little biased. Sonoma County is absolutely gorgeous.
It is beautiful. Well, thank you so much for chatting with us, Hale. The judges have entered their scores, and we're ready for our next competitor, who is Jocelyn Smith from San Diego State.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Jocelyn. I can see you and hear you. Are you ready to go?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. You're on.
You're probably hitting your post-lunch slump, and I know exactly what you want to talk about. Sex. When I said the word sex, think about the thoughts, feelings, and emotions that popped up for you. What research indicates is that when many of us think about sex, whether it's popular media or healthcare settings or even our own minds, we think about young people. And that's because in Western culture, we're raised to believe that as individuals age, they become asexual, lose interest in sex, or that the sex lives of older adults are plagued by sexual dysfunction. In America, it's almost like when you hit the age 50, you've hit your sexual expiration date. This group of common misconceptions is called sexual ageism, and it has huge impacts on the health and well-being of older adults. One common example of sexual ageism that we see in our healthcare system is the underdiagnosis or misdiagnosis of sexually transmitted infections. In fact, a 2020 report from the CDC indicated that the incidence of sexually transmitted infections like gonorrhea, chlamydia, and HIV and AIDS doubled and in some cases tripled in the older adult population in the last decade. When health and human service professionals examine the health of older adults with a sexually ageist lens, they miss critical opportunities for screenings, assessments, and interventions that can have life-changing impacts for older adults. Thus, with this in mind, my research looked at what factors may drive sexual ageism in emerging health and human service professionals. To conduct this research, I gathered 400 surveys from students at the College of Health and Human Services at San Diego State University. The students completed a 20 to 30-minute survey and received a $10 incentive. The survey was divided into two parts. The first part collected their sociodemographic characteristics, and the second part used a validated tool called the Aging Sexual Knowledge and Attitude Scale, which gathered students' knowledge about sexual health and aging, and also their attitudes about sexual health and aging. Broadly, what my research showed is that there are many factors that impact the sexual ageist beliefs of many of the students in this population. For example, female identifying students and non-binary students had significantly more positive attitudes about sexual health and aging compared with their male counterparts. In addition, for the students that were older in age, students with a higher education, higher knowledge scores, and students in the School of Social Work also tended to have more positive attitudes. So what do we do with all this information? As we target sexual ageism to increase the age-inclusive healthcare for older adults, it's critical we provide opportunities for education, bring awareness to sexual ageism, and provide space for students to evaluate the biases that may be impacting their sexual ageist beliefs. So when I say, let's talk about sex, folks, I want to hear you say, definitely.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn. So what got you interested in studying sexual ageism?
That's a really great question and a bit of a loaded question. I've always had an interest in health equity for older adults, and I had the opportunity to work at a nursing home as part of my social work internship, and I recognized that one of the aspects of health we're not looking at for older adults is sexual health. I also had the opportunity to meet my research mentor at the same time that I was recognizing these patterns, Dr. Megan Ebor, and this is her field of expertise. So the combination of personal experience and really good timing with this professor really helped align things for this study.
How will you take this information and use it in social work practice?
That's a great question. I think that one of the key takeaways for me with this was that there are, in the College of Health and Human Services at San Diego State, there are a lot of different schools. There's a School of Social Work, Public Health, and all of these different schools had different amounts of knowledge and attitudes about sexual health. What I think is that we need to be providing curriculum opportunities for students to debunk sexual health narratives that are out there. There is a qualitative aspect to my research that I gathered information from students, and I'll tell you, overwhelmingly, students are interested in this information and interested in providing more equitable care. So I thought that was pretty great.
Well, thank you so much, Jocelyn. The judges have entered their scores, and we're ready now to calibrate results. So judges, if you could please move into your backstage calibration room to add up your scores. All right, competitors and audience members, don't leave quite yet. I know they're putting up directions for the lobby. It'll take a few minutes for the judging team to calibrate scores, and we still need to do the judging for the People's Choice Awards. So you now have your opportunity to vote for your favorite presentation. A Zoom poll is going to appear on the screen with a list of competitors. Please go ahead and make your selection, and polling will be open for 3 minutes. Polling is continuing. It will be open for another 2 minutes and 15 seconds. After you cast your vote, you can please return to the lobby to enjoy some fun facts about our CSU campuses and await the announcement of the winners. We'll invite you to the awards and closing ceremonies when the winners of all the awards have been selected. We want to congratulate all of our Grad Slam competitors, and we'll see you at the awards and closing ceremonies, but vote before you leave.
Well, it is the moment you've all been waiting for, the awards and closing ceremonies. Here we go. This is going to be quick, hopefully. As you know, I am your host, Dr. Dina Perrone, the Associate Dean of Graduate Studies here at California State University, Long Beach. And I have the great honor and pleasure to be announcing the winners of today's massive event. And so we will start with the People's Choice Award. I'm not going to drum roll. I'm just going to tell you because the anticipation is just too much, to be honest. Okay, the winner is Niki Kangas from Sacramento State. Congratulations, Niki. You have won the People's Choice Award. Our next winner is Zach Merson. Congratulations, Zach, from CSU Long Beach. You have won the second place position at the 24 Grad Slam. And our first place winner, Alyssa Anzalone from Monterey Bay. Congratulations, Alyssa. I'm not sure if we were able to give them access to turn on their cameras, but if we did, it was Zach Merson, Niki Kangas, and Alyssa Anzalone. If they are able to turn on cameras, it'd be really cool to turn on their cameras and they can wave to be acknowledged. But if not, I'd just like them to know that all three winners will receive a trophy that will be mailed to them. The first place winner, oh, there's Alyssa. First place winner will receive a check for $1,500. Our second place winner will receive $1,000. And then Niki, our Audience Choice Award winner, there, Zach will win $1,000 and Niki will win $500. The other participants who earn their spot in the final round will also receive a trophy acknowledging their achievement. Congratulations to all of our winners. Before we conclude, I must acknowledge the large number of people across the CSU who helped make this event a reality. Obviously, our Grad Slam competitors are the first ones. You did a great job today. It was not easy, but I'm hoping you had a great time. And then I would like to express my heartfelt appreciation to our moderators and judges whose invaluable presence and expertise made this event possible. Thanks to the members of our event planning committee who spent months planning this particular Grad Slam. And a huge thank you to the logistic magicians who pulled everything together. This was a hardworking team of people. And I especially want to thank Dave Scosato for going above and beyond to make this event a success. Dave, if it wasn't for you, I think I would have cried many times. And finally, thank you to the Chancellor's Office providing funding for this event, and both Grad Studies and ATS at CSU for their support. And to you, our audience, thank you all for participating and attending. What a great showcase of student research and creative activity across the CSU. We hope you have enjoyed being part of the 4th annual CSU Grad Slam, and we look forward to seeing you all at next year's event. Thanks again, everyone. Congratulations to our winners. And as we say at CSU, go Beach.